But how about for now, we bring on the legendary Mr. John Minto to talk about Gaza. John Minto, John, welcome to the show. So pleased and delighted to have you with us.
Oh, kia ora, Pat and Martin. It's really nice to be here. I enjoyed my first stint on a wee while ago, and looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, cool. Now, we were going to have a look sort of what's going on at the moment, because everyone, I've been calling this Gaza idol, because it's a little bit like tune in after the break. We'll see if New Zealand recognises Gaza. That's kind of how it's felt the whole way through. Prime Minister's like, well, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it's all happening this week. It hasn't happened yet. Winston Peters hasn't had a stand-up yet. I'm assuming it's happening tomorrow or the next morning, New Zealand time. But John, can I just throw you the ball, hopefully not a hospital pass, and just like to get your thoughts around this idea of recognising Gaza, where we're at, maybe any insights you have or any ideas as to where you think it might be going.
Yeah, well, I think New Zealand should have recognised Gaza, 77 years, recognised the Palestinian state 77 years ago. I think the way it's been brought up now by Western countries is as a distraction, because they do not want to sanction Israel. They're terrified of sanctioning Israel because that path leads to the end of the Israeli state. So what they want to do is, I think, what Winston Peters has been doing is dangling this: will we recognise, will we not, as a way to, as I say, distract the whole discussion. It's like when we had the march across the, it was supposed to be the Harbour Bridge March, but it turned into that huge march down Queen Street. I mean, I was almost the last person to leave Aotea Square, so I was at the very end of the march. It took us an hour to leave the square, and by the time I left the square, the march had already reached Victoria Park. So it was an enormous march. And the theme of that march wasn't recognise Palestine. The theme of that march was sanction Israel for genocide. Okay. So everybody in the movement is saying, recognising Palestine is not going to make a blind bit of difference in the short term. Yes, it will be important in the long term, but in the short term, no, not a blind bit of difference. To stop Israel now, we need sanctions. Israel needs to feel some real heat, and at the moment, they're not feeling any heat. They're just feeling the love, to the point where, the deputy foreign minister in Israel, who is coming down to the Pacific in October, she was interviewed by Sean Plunkett on his platform show. And she said she wants to come to New Zealand to thank the New Zealand government, to express gratitude to the New Zealand government for the fact that it has stood by Israel for the last 2 years. And that is the most shocking indictment of where New Zealand has been. She's not talking about going to Australia or anywhere else. She says, I want to come to New Zealand to express gratitude to our government. So I think we're in an absolute powerless position. We put a media release out a couple of days ago saying, New Zealand is the unprincipled runt among Western nations. We're at the very back. We're doing nothing. We're trying to keep out of everybody's way. But there's a genocide going on, and the people of New Zealand are really angry about it. The last thing I'll say in this little segment is to say that the people of New Zealand have expressed through at least 3 public opinion polls over the last year, and the latest one by Radio New Zealand, if you're given if people are given the choice, should we sanction Israel or not, people are 2-1 in favour of sanctioning Israel. There's a whole lot of don't knows, that's true, but people who give an opinion, it's 2-1 in favour of sanctioning Israel. And most issues I've been involved in, you start off as a real minority, and you're battling to make headway. In this issue, in a sense, we've won public support, and the public are behind Palestine, but the government isn't. And it's the same as other Western governments as well. Yeah.
Do you see where the runt? I mean, when I think about Christopher Luxon and his team, I think of a word that rhymes with runt, but it's not exactly runt. I can't quite remember what it is right now. Do you think they're non-committal is them standing by Israel, i.e., this person's going to come down and heap praise on their heads for supporting Israel. Is that person being a troublemaker because a non-commitment is not support, or do you think what they've done inadvertently has supported the Israeli position?
Well, what they've done is definitely supported the Israeli position. The Israelis know that they can't win the argument, so they don't try and win the argument. They don't try and win public support. All they do is when people put their heads up, they target politicians, they target news editors, and they target academics. Those are the three groups they go for. They don't particularly go for us, but they go for those groups. They know they cannot win the argument. So yeah, we're in a situation where that big group of don't knows is a group that is that's there because for decades Israel has thrown red herrings in every direction, and their basic line is, "It's complicated. Don't say anything unless you've read the history until you know." In other words, they're just trying to scare people off the whole argument, and that's been successful to a significant extent. But I think now their war crimes are so egregious, they are so, so depraved and so cruel in what's happened in Gaza that I think the public in general are just freaking gobsmacked by it. And the fact that we're doing nothing about it is just shocking, absolutely shocking.
Bomber.
David Seymour has built an illegal settlement on the Prime Minister's balls, and we have to pretend that's an independent foreign policy. What's going on here, and the reason why we are foot dragging, is ACT, who are very, very supportive of Zionist apologists, have been forcing this government to drag its heels. And that's why we haven't had a clear, definitive argument against an statement of support. John's absolutely right in terms of what we're really getting here with recognizing Palestine as a symbolic victory. It's more to shame Israel than anything else. We need to go well beyond that. The war has crippled the Israeli economy. They've gone from 6.4% growth to 0.9%. It's really hurt. The cultural isolation is hurting. The only way you're going to force them to the negotiating table and do something meaningful is sanctions. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. They will not change unless they are forced to. And unfortunately, Netanyahu, he needs constant warfare so that the systems of his own country, the independent judiciary, the checks and balances of a normal functioning democracy, he's able to push those constantly off because of the war. And so we need to push Israel economically into a place where Netanyahu, is either caught up by the judiciary or politically is removed, because it is his vested interest to keep with the war. And that's why he's not interested in any real peace deal, because he needs to keep conflict alive. And if you've got a prime minister who's in charge with that kind of level of power, well, you're never going to be able to change anything. And I think that the other problem, of course, is that Donald Trump is absolutely enabling this genocide. He's absolutely giving a green light for Netanyahu to do as he likes. So we in the West, I mean, these are our allies. They are committing a genocide. What are you supposed to do when your allies are committing war crimes? We have to step up in a much louder and a much clearer voice than we currently.
Can I just add one thing to that, Bomber? I think it's an important factor. That is that National Party and Labor did it when Labor was in power as well. They've contracted out foreign affairs to Winston Peters. He's an old hand. He knows the area. He's a marvelous job. And that that narrative has been picked up by the media generally to say he's a really good pair of hands to be holding foreign affairs. But if you think about Winston Peters, I don't think it's, and I'd say this for the government generally, it's not necessarily an ideological commitment to Israel at all. I don't think they have that very strongly, apart from a small number of MPs like Simon Court and ACT and various others, that they're absolutely away with the fairies when it comes to Israel. But I think Winston Peters' whole political career has been wanting New Zealand to be very closely in orbit with the US. So I think he's not looking at what Israel's reaction will be. He's wanting to know what will the US reaction be. So, Winston Peters actually has been, if you look at all those issues that we like to talk about, the anti-nuclear and the anti-apartheid and the women's movement and gay rights and whatever, Winston Peters has been on the wrong side of all of those over the years, and he's on the wrong side of this one. So I think we need to see his role as one wanting to cozy up to the US.
So for future reference, whatever Winston wants, the opposite is the right thing to do, based on what you
just about
said.
That's
pretty much.
Yeah, I'm interested also in the process a little bit. Either of you guys know, I'd love your input onto this. Is this, whether they're going to recognize or not Gaza, is this a cabinet decision? Does it have to get a vote at cabinet? Does the whole cabinet have to agree to it? Because listening to David Seymour, we played a clip of him from just a couple of days ago, talking about there's absolutely no way that we're going to give the terrorists, you're going to recognize them when there's, hostages, blah, 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 blah. But he was like a hard no. Do either of you guys know, does this need to be a we're all on board or no one's on board? Does this need to be a majority and one can agree to disagree?
It's just majority. Whoever has the majority in cabinet, and they're all bound by that. But the foot dragging really is coming from ACT, and they are the ones who have, throughout all of this, done everything they can to stymie any real criticism from the government on what Israel's actions have been. And it's just another reality of how feckless and spineless the Prime Minister is in not putting his foot down.
Yep. I think I agree with that, Bomber. I think just the process thing, the government say that there's going to be some sort of cabinet call tomorrow with Winston over in New York, and that he will make the announcement on Saturday morning our time. So, I think they will definitely recognise Palestine, but they'll put all of these caveats in place. Hamas can't be there. There has to be this, that, and the other thing. There has to be reforms here and there. So it'll be so caveated out that it'll be almost meaningless. And they may not even go that far. They may say, we will recognise Palestine when this, and this happens.
Yeah.
And that way. That way we keep out of sight of the US.
One question for clarity: you've said that sanctioning Israel is the big thing. That recognizing Gaza will do something in the long term, not in the short term. Those countries that we've heard, Australia, France, UK, Canada, and the others that have recognized Gaza, are any of them down the path of also sanctioning Israel, or are they just at the recognizing state, which you're saying is not really the best thing to do at the moment?
Well, look, the country that's really come out in front is Spain. Spain announced 9 different sanctions measures, and none of them are earth-shatteringly brilliant, but they're solid, and they give a clear direction forward. And if Western countries were to pick up those Spanish sanctions, then we would have some real heavy pressure on Israel, and honestly, this war would stop very, very quickly. So Spain is a country to watch. And just today, and this is how these international conflicts have critical points, and I think we may be approaching a really critical point where we've got the flotilla heading towards Gaza. And we've got Spain now sending a warship to protect the flotilla, and you've got Italy sending 2 ships to protect the flotilla. And this is a point where European countries are saying, Israel, you are starving people. There's a genocide going on. We are going to support people who are taking food aid in against what your government's doing. And at the same time, you've got Egypt and Turkey are having military exercises in the sea off the east of the Mediterranean. So there could be. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I'm naturally an optimist by nature. This could be a moment when European countries do stand up in a meaningful way, and that's going to really put the cat among the pigeons. The US will be right now will be flat out, desperately trying to pull this in and give Israel a free hand, but that's going to be a difficult task.
Bomber?
I think that many of the old alliances with Europe have crumbled. I think that the Abraham Accords with the Middle East have fallen over. I mean, Israel is a case of David becoming Goliath. I just cast our mind back to the Vietnam War, and they refer to that as the first war that was broadcast into our lounge rooms. And the horror of seeing children blown to bits by American bombs, the horror of seeing children burnt with napalm, the reality of what war did changed an entire generation's perception. And I think that what we've got with what's been happening in Gaza, this is almost the first war that's been broadcast to our primary schools. My daughter and her friend group, when they're watching TikTok and they're seeing these horrific images of children who they identify with being blown to smithereens and blown to bits, the damage this has caused Israel and America's standing in the world, I don't think has even been calculated yet.
Yeah.
And the long-term effects of this are going to be with us for generations. You can't kill this amount of people, have it exposed to the world, and no change occur. I think that Israel have done themselves a terrible, damaging disservice in the way they have prosecuted their revenge on October the 7th. I think America has been shameful in allowing Israel to get away with such barbarous violence and cruelty beyond imagination. And there's no way of them winning this. There's no winning here. You know.
I think what you're saying is obvious to all of us as well, Marty, by how countries are reacting now to Israel. What Canada is doing, what UK is doing, what France is doing, probably unthought of a year, 2 years, 3 years ago. But because they've gone that far, it's almost like at some stage you kind of go, look, he's my best mate, but he's now doing things that I'm not even going to support. I'm with you. You know what I mean? It's like if they didn't turn, they would have to therefore either by omission or not be endorsing what's going on. So it's on some level it's horrible because they've done so. It's gotten so bad they've had to, and there's evidence of that with not their sanctions but their recognition of Palestine.
Yeah, I think. It's one of those. This is 77 years. This has gone on for 77 years, and it continues right to this day, right to today, Thursday. It continues because Israel has never ever been held to account by Western countries.
Right.
That's the simple facts, and what we're saying now, and what the public of New Zealand are saying, which is great, and the public around the Western world. The Global South have been saying it forever, or the people of the Global South, and now the people of the Western world are joining them to say, we've got to end this, and sanctions are the way to end it. So we've got the elites in the Western world still supporting Israel, and we've got the elites in the Arab world doing the same thing. But we've got such an outpouring of the mass of humanity now that I don't think, as Bomber sort of alluded, I don't think there's any way back for Israel on this. And when people say to me, oh, look, we're marching in the streets and nothing's happening, nothing's changing, we're not seeing the government move, I say, well, look, every time we wave a Palestinian flag, every time we take place in a march, take part in a march, we are making it more and more difficult, and now I think impossible for Israel to come back from this. We've got to keep this before the public for as long as it goes on, to make it utterly impossible for Israel to come back from this.
Just reminded as well of the stories that Nelson Mandela used to say about hearing about protests going on in New Zealand and how it gave him, energy on Robben Island, wasn't it? So I think there's always something going on. Hey, John, thank you for your time. But before we go, where to from here? I mean, obviously there's still protests happening all around the country on Saturdays. Anything to let us in the whānau know about as to from today onwards, what we need to know about? Any ideas as to what you think we should be doing to stay in this fight?
Well, I think after Saturday morning, Winston Peters will have ended dangling whatever he's dangling, recognising a Palestinian state. And I think that we have to move on, maintain our movement forward, demanding sanctions. Yes. I think there will be a big march on the Harbour Bridge, and we need to build that into the biggest march New Zealand has ever seen. And in the middle of October, we have a court case coming up at the High Court in Auckland, where we're taking the super fund to court. I mean, it's just unbelievable that we still have investors in New Zealand who are investing in companies that the United Nations have identified as being complicit in building and maintaining illegal Israeli settlements on Palestinian land. Yes. And it's an absolute shame that our sovereign wealth funds are part of that problem. So there is a lot happening, and it's forward with sanctions. We must demand and continue to demand sanctions.
And just before he goes, I need to say this, comrade. John, we're so lucky, sir, to have you leading this movement. I know you're too humble to ever acknowledge these words, but you have been New Zealand's social conscience since the apartheid era. To have you so active, still leading this charge, we are blessed to have you as one of our leaders, comrade. And just all power to your arm, John, how you manage to get up every day and lead this movement and continue to make the positive change and remind New Zealanders what it is to actually have a moral backbone and to have a moral conscience. We're so blessed to have you, mate.
Well, thanks for that, Bomber. I think this is you've used the right word, movement. So this is not an organisation. We're not trying to build an organisation. We're trying to build a movement, and there are lots of different groups in the movement, and they're all doing a fantastic job. So we are moving forward, and the good thing is that all of the groups in the movement have got the same aims. We're calling for sanctions against Israel as the top priority. So thank you for those kind words, and thanks for having me on the show. Really appreciate it.
Anytime, John. Have you back whenever you want to tell us about stuff. Thank you again for coming on. All the best.
Solidarity, comrade.
Sure. Thank you very much.